And it's 10 a.m. here. Meteorologist Peyton Malone. We are continuing to track Tropical Storm Ida. You're going to continue to get these frequent updates as we get our advisories in. And Ida continues to strengthen. This is the latest as of 10 a.m. 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm, and it's getting near Cuba. It is really organizing. It's developing an inner core, and what that tells us is this thing is going to continue to intensify as it moves to the north. So don't be surprised. We're probably going to have a hurricane later on this afternoon and by this evening before it even gets to the Gulf of Mexico. They've issued hurricane warnings for the tip of Cuba there. All right, here's our new track. Let's take you through it, getting into the southwestern Gulf of Mexico as we go into tonight. And then, southern Gulf of Mexico by tonight, by tomorrow morning, well into being a Category 1 storm, and then continuing to rapidly intensify as we go throughout your Saturday. And you can see there the track of this, the eventual track. Overall, I haven't seen any significant changes. It's nudged a little to the west, but maybe by 10 miles. That's not a significant change here with this forecast, but here is a change. Stronger, and this is what we were expecting. They still have it as a Cat 3, but they bumped up those intensities, and it still is well within reason that this could be a Category 4 before it makes landfall somewhere in South Louisiana, Southeast Louisiana, and that cone includes all the way over nearly to Lake Charles, Lafayette, Morgan City here, Houma here, New Orleans, and even parts of the Mississippi coast still in that cone of uncertainty. So we have seen the trends that, yes, this is going to continue to strengthen in the Gulf of Mexico, and we're pretty certain that this is going to rapidly intensify, meaning it is going to become a major hurricane, and it could perhaps become a Category 4 before it makes landfall somewhere in South Louisiana Sunday evening. They have it making landfall closer to sunset. Then as it moves to the north, notice by Monday just there towards Baton Rouge, anywhere in the cone there, but the center of it is Baton Rouge, so it's going to slow down a bit here, and then it will pick up speed once again and be up into north of Jackson by Tuesday morning as a weakening system. So as it makes that turn, it's going to slow down. And we'll, of course, be watching for not only all the traditional threats of winds and storm surge, but also some heavy rainfall as it makes that turn. So that is the latest track there. We could be looking at a Cat 4 making landfall in southeast Louisiana, although it doesn't call for that. It is still possible. Storm surge values, I was just checking with the National Hurricane Center and their latest thinking on this. We have not seen any updates on these values. They're still calling for about 7 to 11 feet on the high side. I think these could be higher. If this ends up being a Category 4, you could add a couple of feet to these, so don't be surprised if these do go up, but it could bring significant storm surge outside of the levees. This does not include inside the levees here in Orleans Parish and for any other of the levee protected areas. So Hancock, Harrison County, 7 to 11 feet. Eastern St. Bernard, outside the levees, 7 to 11 feet. Plaquemines Parish on both sides of the bank, 7 to 11 feet. Same thing for Port Fourchon, Grand Isle, heading down into Lower Terrebonne, Cocodrie, Chauvin. You also could see upwards of 11 feet of storm surge, and then still calling for about 4 to 7 feet for Vermilion Bay towards Marsh Island and getting close towards Morgan City. For Lake Pontchartrain, 4 to 6 feet, and then Lake Maurepas calling for 3 to 5 feet. So that's what we're looking at with storm surge. I do think these numbers could change. We'll wait and see, but that's what they are standing at right now. As I mentioned, as this makes its turn, it's going to be making landfall more than likely somewhere in here. As it makes that turn and slows down, this thing is going to have some heavy tropical rain with it, and that rain adds up quickly, and it could be raining for an extended period, so rain will add up. 6 to 10 inches on average, but I think a few people could pick up over 15. Now, when you throw on that heavy rainfall threat, this is talking to the North Shore, on top of the lakes coming up to 4 to 6 feet, you get your backwater flooding. The water can't drain into the lake because the lake is so high, and you get additional flooding up on the river. So that is going to be a concern if you are prone to river flooding. If you have flooded in the past from rivers, you really need to be preparing for this. Better safe than sorry. It's hard to say where that 15 inches could fall, but it is possible it does happen on the North Shore. So that's what we're looking at with rainfall, and everywhere across southeast Louisiana could see some significant totals, and that does include Mississippi as well. Now, as Ida continues into the Gulf of Mexico and grows stronger, the wind field is naturally going to get bigger. So as the wind field increases, that only increases a surge threat, but we will be watching that wind creep on up in here on Sunday. So Friday and Saturday, today and Saturday, no direct impacts from Ida, but as we go into early Sunday morning, it'll start to get a little gusty near the coast, but the more significant winds aren't going to start to move in until the afternoon and especially into the evening. So with it making landfall closer to sunset, we might not start to see those really intense winds until maybe dark. This could be a nighttime event for a lot of people, which makes it even worse because you can't see anything. But there's your intense winds moving up across the area. Now, those winds of 120 plus miles an hour are going to be concentrated more than likely in a small area, but they are going to be possible for someone. This is a generic kind of breakdown on who could see the strongest winds and what your strongest wind gust could be. It's not going to blow this hard the entire time, but there will be the potential to get wind gusts this high. North Shore 65 to 75 seems reasonable. Closer to New Orleans, maybe closer to 80 to 85, and then as you get closer to the center of that storm with the current track, you're going to start to creep up over 100. Now, where it makes landfall, the sustained winds are what forecast to be 120. This thing could very well have gusts over 140 miles an hour. If it's a Cat 4, it could end up being a little higher than that. So that's kind of on the high side, and I'm not putting on this to scare you. This is very much a reality on what Ida could produce in some areas. So the new track is here. If you were watching at 4 a.m., or that 4 a.m. track was more, 5 miles. It moved 5 miles. That's not a big change in the forecast track here. They do have it moving upwards through Terrebonne Parish, parts of St. Mary Parish, and then up near Baton Rouge. Those most intense parts are going to be near the center and right on the east side, wherever you have that eye wall or where you're going to have your strongest winds, perhaps gusting over 140. Those are, catastrophic, destructive winds. So that's what we're looking at with that, and that could include portions of Cocodrie, Chauvin, Port Fourchon, even towards Grand Isle could see some wind gusts over 100 miles per hour with the current forecast. And then as you get up towards Houma, Thibodaux, into the river parishes, the wind will naturally start to decrease as it gets the friction of the land, but you could still see wind gusts over 100 miles per hour that could cause not only power problems, but trees falling. You got to be careful here. If your house is under a big tree, maybe you don't want to be in it with winds of 100-something miles an hour. And this includes Plaquemines Parish. Lower Plaquemines Parish could certainly see some strong wind gusts. As you get into Upper Plaquemines, the metro, as I mentioned, maybe up to 80 miles per hour. That's with the current forecast. Let me emphasize that this could all change if this line, and that's what the center line is, that's the current forecast track, if it shifts a little further west, that's not a bad thing for the North Shore of New Orleans or any of us here in southeast Louisiana. It would take the worst winds with it. We'd still be on the dirty side of the storm, but maybe the more intense winds would be just to our west. On the flip side, if this thing decides it wants to come in more in Terrebonne, Lafourche, Plaquemines is an option. St. Bernard, Mississippi, they're still in the cone of uncertainty. If this storm decides to come in a little further this way, boy, do we got big time problems across our area. So you can't let your guard down. We're getting to that point where you have to prepare regardless because we're running out of time and we could have a very destructive storm on our doorstep by Sunday afternoon going into Sunday night. So that's what we're looking at with the potential for some wind gusts with the current track. This could certainly change, so just keep that in mind, and that's why we want you checking in. Let me show you one of our forecast models here. This is the GFS, and this is showing you the potential wind gusts, not the sustained winds, but anywhere you see yellows and whites, that's going to be the potential for a major hurricane wind gust. Now, let me back this up here so you can see it. Notice as we go into Saturday night, we'll start to see some wind gusts, maybe up to 30, 40 miles an hour near the coast. That's when things will start to go downhill. And then as we go into Sunday around lunchtime, we could start to see some hurricane force wind gusts near our coastal areas. We're talking lower Lafourche, lower Terrebonne, lower Jefferson. That's where you see the yellows. Those are wind gusts of at least a Category 1. And then where you see those whites, which are going to be on the north and eastern side of that eye wall, that's where you're going to have your winds approaching 111 plus. That's a Category 3 or higher. And you can see there, this model is almost spot on with the National Hurricane Center forecast. They're forecasting it to be here by 7 o'clock. This is the GFS model. It has it just off Terrebonne Parish's coast with hurricane force winds spreading up through the bayou parishes and then eventually continuing to spread up. Now, I want you to watch this. As this thing moves inland, that wind threat is going to linger all the way up to maybe Baton Rouge, where you could see hurricane force wind gusts there. Notice if that storm takes this track, we could very well get part of that eastern eye wall and parts of the metro that could produce some wind gusts over hurricane force. So that's why we're all under that hurricane watch right now. But definitely this has the potential to produce some very, very destructive winds. Let's talk about why we are very confident in this forecast. Usually when we're forecasting a hurricane, you hear us talk a lot about uncertainty. And we've talked about it a lot with this one, but our confidence has really grown in this over the past 24 hours or so, and really over the past 12 hours. And our confidence in the intensity is above normal. Usually our intensity forecast we're a little iffy on. We're almost certain this storm is going to blow up into a major hurricane. Reason for that, we've got everything working for it to do that. One of them being the ocean heat content. Now, think of it as the sea surface temperature, but how deep does that hot water go? The deeper that hot water is, the brighter these colors are going to be. So this is called the loop current. We all have heard of the loop current. This is where you get some deep hot ocean water, and that's going to be traveling over that. So it's got plenty of fuel from the water. That's not going to be an issue for this. But then you have to start thinking, well, do we have low wind shear? Do we have any dry air that's going to affect this storm? And it just doesn't look like there's going to be much of that in the Gulf of Mexico. You couple those three together, you got the ingredients for a strong hurricane. Now, there's still a little wind shear right now on this thing. That's why it's not a hurricane yet, but the wind shear is weakening. And the reason it's going to start to weaken over as we go into tomorrow, there's this upper level low and this kind of tropical wave upper level low moving through the Gulf of Mexico. It's heading west, and as it heads west, it's weakening. So that's where our wind shear is right now. It's giving us southwest wind shear pushing on the center. So this is an upper level low. There is Ida, that's a low level low, and it's pushing on it right now. Now as this lifts to the west and weakens, Ida is no longer going to have that influence of this southwesterly shear. It's going to be able to breathe. Hurricanes are basically big cycles, they're big engines, and they need to breathe. They need to circulate that air down and just keep doing it. And if that can happen, then they will intensify and grow. You throw in nearly 90-degree sea surface temperatures that are deep, and boy, you got a big problem with a major hurricane. So that's why we're very confident in this forecast. We've had a lot of people saying, oh, this isn't going to blow up. Usually we'd be thinking, well, there's some uncertainty, but we are very certain with this forecast. Not only us, the National Hurricane Center has said they're very certain and have high confidence that this is going to grow into a pretty big storm. So what we're looking at here, a 7-day forecast, to give you a breakdown on our impacts as we go into the weekend. We've got pretty good chance of showers and storms today. That means we could see some heavy rain. And I do want to briefly mention, we got to keep an eye on today. This doesn't have anything to do with Ida, but we will have to watch for maybe some flash flooding in spots. There's some pretty heavy rainfall that's going to be moving on through at times. It doesn't take much to get street flooding down here. So we'll be watching that today. It only makes preparing a pain. I know a lot of people are out right now. Everyone's out trying to get stuff. Just be careful out in the rain and with some thunder and lightning. Be careful if you got to be outside. Saturday, you'll still be able to prepare tomorrow. There's going to be hit or miss storms tomorrow, but really no direct impacts from Ida just yet. We'll have maybe an outer band late in the day and going into tomorrow night. Really, it's not until Sunday morning things really start to go downhill along the coast, and then Sunday afternoon is when things will really start to go downhill along the coast. Sunday evening is when I think we'll start to see more of an impact in the New Orleans metro, and then through Sunday night, you're talking the river parishes, Baton Rouge, and parts of the North Shore. So as I mentioned, this is unfortunately looking like it's going to be more of an overnight event for a lot of people as we go into early Monday. With it slowing down, Monday afternoon, it'll still be in the vicinity, crossing into, kind of think up towards the Natchez area and then up towards Jackson by Monday evening. So it's not going to be moving terribly fast, but it is going to be moving. So that's what we're looking at with all of our impacts. That is the latest as of 10 a.m. Just a quick little recap really fast. If you missed it, we are continuing to track Tropical Storm Ida. It is a tropical storm. It's just now getting close to Cuba. It is really organizing itself. And whenever you see all these bright cloud colors like that and on the satellite near the center, that is a sign that it's developing that core. It is starting to breathe, and it's going to continue to intensify as it moves to the northwest. One last look at that track, just in case you missed it. This is the track as of 10 a.m. into the Gulf of Mexico tonight. It's probably going to be a hurricane later this afternoon as the hurricane hunters are in there checking it out right now. Will rapidly intensify as it moves over that loop current. It's got weak wind shear. It's going to be able to breathe. And then there you go. They have it as a Category 3, 120+ mile per hour storm on the coast of Louisiana by Sunday evening. And this is something else you got to look out for. We always say prepare for a category higher. So you should realistically be preparing for a Category 4 here. Why do we say that? Well, the National Hurricane Center forecast intensity has an average error of about 15 miles per hour. So if you add 15 miles per hour to that, you know, you're looking at a Category 4. So that's why we're saying just prepare just in case. Now, some areas are not going to see significant impacts from this. Maybe you're lucky enough, but some of the Channel 4 viewing areas certainly could see significant impacts. we can't, sit here and say, hope for the best and not prepare. At this point, we got to be preparing because this will be bringing impacts to our area by the end of the weekend and into early parts of Monday. So that is the latest as of 10 a.m. Of course, we'll have our 1 p.m. update coming in later this afternoon. That one won't have a new track. We'll have our next new track coming in at 4 p.m. And of course, we'll be right here on Channel 4 with all the updates, or for anyone else watching us on all of our platforms.